back, everyone, to the chats and interviews of the European Livestock Voice in collaboration with the EAAP, the European Federation of Animal Sciences. Today we have a guest from Denmark, Dr. Nicolaj Ingemann Nielsen. And hi, doctor, how are you?
Thank you, I'm doing good.
So you are, I tell only that to the people listening that you're dealing with innovation in livestock, which is something very interesting, very appealing. But I let you explain what you're doing exactly, because for me it sounds quite complex.
Okay. Well, I'm a nutritionist of background and working within the area of cattle, especially dairy cows. We are dealing with different softwares for optimization of feeding of dairy cows and young stock, and also quite involved in climate issues, how to mitigate the carbon footprint of milk and beef, different solutions, feed additives, feeding strategies to minimize or at least lower the carbon footprint of milk and beef.
And basically you're collaborating also with universities, you're collaborating with the EAP, of course, mostly on topics related to innovation, am I right?
Yeah, so different projects together with the universities and different partners in the cattle sector, and also at different universities in Europe to try to come forward with solutions that can be implemented on farm, either to increase feed efficiency, productivity, or to lower especially the enteric methane from ruminants, because that is the big leaving the big carbon footprint. That is the methane emission from our cattle. So that is a key point, how to lower those greenhouse gas emissions. And we also have colleagues at Seges that works on the plant side, so they work with different ways of lowering nitrous oxides, which is also a very potent greenhouse gas.
So basically you're developing IT technologies for farmers, and in other words, you bring science to farms. As far as I understood, that's why I was saying complex, because when I was talking to you the first time, you're dealing with such a broad range of stuff that was quite impressive. But so I'm asking you, how can the IT technologies and this kind of innovation help farmers improve their efficiency, sustainability, environmental and economical and social and animal welfare, and so on?
Yes, so maybe I should just mention that that I and my colleagues, we are working also quite a lot on farm. So we are trying these technologies. We are trying to take some of these IT tools out on farm, test it among farmers, and also try to bring how to work with different feeding strategies to reduce, for instance, the ammonia emissions on farm. And also different, it could be feed additives or feeding strategies to lower the greenhouse gas emissions on farm, and all that needs to be documented in some way. So that's where we have our IT tools, where you can document what have you been feeding. And for instance, if you're using feed additives, which is mandatory by law in Denmark, you have to use different feeding strategies or feed additives to lower the methane emission from your cows. You have to document that in a tool. So you have to type in your feed plan, or you have to type in what are you mixing for your cows in terms of different feedstuffs, different feed additives, and all that is going into IT system where you can then document how have I fed my cows in this month and the next month and so forth. So in that way, you need this documentation, and we do it by IT systems. So you can go into the system, you can say I've used this specific feed additive or this specific amount of fat to lower my methane emission from my dairy cows. So that is one way of using these IT tools on the individual farm, and also even on individual groups of cows in some of the bigger herds.
And I mean, this leads me to ask you two things. As you say that you are literally on the field, which makes sense with farmers. I ask you, how can farmers get the skills and the time to implement all these technologies and in general livestock innovation in their daily work? And what about the let's call it cultural shift? I mean, are farmers ready to use and take advantage of these new technologies? So how they get the skills to use them, but before that, are they ready culturally, let's say, to use them? Are they willing to use them? Because sometimes I've seen, maybe for anographic reasons, how can I say, maybe some farmers in Italy at least are often aged and they're not really keen to learn this stuff, and even if they're very useful. I mean, how is the situation from your perspective?
I think in many ways in Denmark you have to use IT for many reasons. So the last 20 years, a lot of stuff has been put into digitalization. So you cannot put things on paper anymore. You have to use all these different IT systems to document things, and also when you have to get into when you have to do something with the authorities in Denmark, most often it is via different IT systems. So, but of course, you're also in Denmark. You have at least within the cattle sector, farmers are getting old. So the average farmer is in the late 50s. But I mean, when things are getting easier, when they see that this is actually much easier to do this on my smartphone or my tablet, to do these registration. Every time a cow have given birth to a calf, you have to register that digitally. So there are a lot of things that is in databases, all milk recordings and so forth is there. Every time a cow is bred, it's in these databases. So
you have a database in Denmark in which you have collected all the data of every cow, right?
Yeah. So everything about this cow, how much milk is it producing, and when did it give birth, and how many days are it in lactation, and all this information is in one database. And of course, there are also farmers that don't want to spend their time in front of the computer, but they would often have an advisor, or they would have often a younger person they have hired to take to do these things. So it's very difficult to avoid this, and as I said, I think most farmers are actually they are using this to some degree in their working life on a daily basis, and then if it gets very specific, like doing feedstuffs calculations and so forth, they would have an advisor or a person of some kind attached to their farm that can help them with this.
Which sounds like a cost, and they have enough costs, farmers right now. So
yeah, but I think most of them have realized that it is actually much faster to do things via the computer instead of doing it in some other way. And they also see the value of this, that they can go in, and if they ask a question about a cow or group of cows, they can go into the software and see how well are these cows performing and so forth. So they get some kind of value back from these data.
Okay, so more than a cost is an investment, because then it's
Yeah.
increasing efficiency, productivity, and so on.
And to take one example, also the way you monitor cows today. So on many farms you have this equipment on each individual cow that will tell you this cow is in heat, it needs to be bred, or this cow is not chewing the way the amount of chewing, the way of rumination. It's not the same amount of rumination as it was 2 days earlier. So there will be some alarms, and they see the value of this. The costs on these kind of technologies have been decreasing, and also because labor is quite expensive in Denmark, as it is in many countries. So suddenly these technologies, they give meaning, they have a value.
Well, indeed, it's yeah, I've seen it, because thanks to the European Livestock Voice and the work I'm doing, I had the chance these last years to go around Europe, and I've seen some farms, some farmers with, for instance, cattle with wearable devices, predicting these devices were able to say if a cow, in that case, was going to feel sick. And this farmer was telling me at the beginning he didn't really care of it, because he thought, as he has experience, to know better than a wearable device. But finally, he figured out that these tools were right. So he was impressed himself of the how much effective was the support of these devices. So it's and predicting the health conditions, and if he's eating, not eating. So, well, it's also a question of animal welfare. So it's because yes, you can reduce the use of medicines if you intervene before the animal is getting sick. I only wonder what about the data. I mean, with all this data, I've seen a project in Italy again. The farmer I was talking about was in Ireland. Now back to Italy, I've seen there is a project called LEO, Livestock Environment Open Data, and they collected already billion of data about not only cattle, every species, every livestock species. The problem is that sometimes they don't really know what to do, and they don't know, again, with this data. Not the experts collecting it, because it's mostly academics, researchers, and so on. But I had the feeling that the institutions or some organizations don't really know what to do. So there is a large amount of data collected, but some not yet properly exploited. How can I say? Is like that in general, or what?
I think that is kind of the central point here, that there are some data that you need to fill in, and you will use them on an everyday basis, or on a quite regular basis. And then there are data where you somehow, if you integrate your data from the automatic milking robot, and something about what is the feed consumption of some concentrate in the robot or somewhere else, can you somehow use this information to say this cow should receive more concentrate, then it will give more milk, this cow should receive less. And I think that is where you can still do some improvement of these integration of data, and there is also some companies, they have some data, and other companies have the other data. So there are many suppliers of different technologies within a farm, and the question is there also how to integrate from different sources, and to make some value out of that. And there, I think that's where we are now. That is to get different companies to also to see the value of integrating these data. That is the tricky part.
Yeah, it sounds quite challenging. And speaking of challenges and these kind of technologies, as I was telling you, I had the chance to go around Europe. Northern Europe, Southern Europe. And I ask you one last thing. I don't want to take too much of your time. What about the infrastructures and the connectivity? Because maybe not in Denmark, but I've seen in many other places, not only the Mediterranean countries, but also often, very often in Germany, for instance, in rural areas mostly, but not only there, there is not even a proper connection for a mobile phone. So is that still a problem also in Northern Europe, or how you see this fact?
Yeah, it was a problem maybe 15 years ago. There were certain places where the internet was not that stable. But today there still are a few places where there can be an issue, but in general this has improved dramatically over the last 10-15 years. So I would say today it's a small issue in general. But I guess it comes back to investment in the capacity on these internet connections, which has been, as far as I can see, from a practical point of view, has been solved in Denmark.
Well, Denmark is famous to have connectivity even in the most remote places. On top is a pretty small country, so yeah. But because without connectivity, I'm afraid we cannot really implement all this technology.
Yeah, and it was something we discussed 15 years ago, implementing, for instance, some of these IT technologies, the Norfor system, optimizing feed plans and so forth. But it's not something you don't hear about these issues today.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I hope we can say the same thing about the entire European Union or Europe in general, let's say soon. So anyway, I would wrap it up here because, as I said, I don't want to take all your time today. And so thank you very much again. Congratulations for what you're doing. It's very interesting, very useful, and surely the future and the present, I would say. And thanks again. I hope we can have the chance to catch up soon. And thank you.
That will be a pleasure. Thank you.